My name is Tanveer Alvi. I'm the training coordinator here at Clear Water. And I'm really happy that we are doing this series of 5 webinars, which are really important and has received great feedback. The first webinar received great feedback from all the participants, and there are 4 more to come. And as I already mentioned, this is the second one. So I'll just quickly take you through what we'll be doing in this webinar. But before everything else, I'll just like to do a small acknowledgement of country. So Clear Water acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the land from where we operate and pays respect to the elders past and present, and elders and people from other communities who may be present here today. Just a quick outline of the webinar. So 12:30 we start. I'll follow up with some housekeeping things. We'll give you a small overview of the program that Clear Water is, and I'll introduce the panelist and our facilitator for the day. Then we'll go for a small presentation about the Horsham SmartWater Project, followed by a really short few minutes Q&A. Then we'll go on to the panel discussion. Then we'll have the proper Q&A session for 20-25 minutes, and then we'll close it around 1:45. So housekeeping, as you all know, this session is being recorded. So your microphones and video cameras will be off, and I'll request you to keep them off while the presentation is going on and the panelists are talking. You can use the chat and Q&A function to post your comments or post your questions. And if there's a question that someone has already asked, and if you like that question, you would like to ask the same question, please just vote or push the like button. The question with the most votes and likes will be preferred during the Q&A session. So just a short bit about Clear Water. So we are funded and hosted by Melbourne Water, and we receive our project and delivery funding from DEECA. We are a capacity building program in the IWM Water stormwater area. So we build capability to support livable places, healthy environments, and resilient communities. The program has been working since 2002, and we do that through providing training and networking events. Our training is not only workshops, but online events and industry tours as well. And we also have a very big online resource library that I would highly, that's recommended by industry professionals. So if you like, you can go to our website and take a look at it. And you can follow us on Humanitics or visit our website page. I have provided QR codes for both. You'll be able to see all our upcoming events there. So coming to our first panelist and presenter, Graham. Graham Dick is from Grampians Wimmera Valley Water. He started as a civil and environmental engineer, but soon found himself in the water industry around 2006. And since then, he's been involved in many civil water and renewable energy projects, and he loves being a part of the water industry. So he has spent most of his working life in regional towns, and he's passionate about delivering practical, sustainable infrastructure that benefits local communities. We also have David Brennan from Wimmera Catchment Management Authority on the panel. He has led the organization for many years now and has been with the organization since its inception in 2018. So that's a long time. And he focuses delivering practical outcomes that support both environmental health and regional prosperity. The facilitator is Mika Pendergast. He's the incentives coordinator at Melbourne Water. He has been working in this industry for a long time, being with Melbourne Water since 2008, working on stormwater, sewage treatment, and water supply projects, and as IWM officer for City of Port Phillip and the Marybank City Council on secondments. He specializes in stormwater management and water-sensitive urban design, and generously shares his expertise not only through industry conferences, but also by contributing to technical guidelines, for example, Melbourne Water's music guidelines. I think he's the best person to facilitate this panel here. So thanks for joining us, all 3 of you. Now, without any further ado, we'll start with the presentation on the Horsham SmartWater Network project, and I'll hand over to Graham now.
Thanks, Tina. I will share my screen here. Hopefully that's coming through.
It's just not in the presentation mode.
How about now?
Yep, all good.
Okay, cool. All right, now I'm in presentation mode. I can't see anything else, so please speak up if something's not going right. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I'm just going to give a bit of a presentation on the project, which I guess is the case study for today's session. It's a bit of a mouthful, the title there, Horsham SmartWater Agriculture and Integrated Water Management Project. We refer to it as the Horsham SmartWater Project for short. And it was certainly a very collaborative effort between a number of agencies in Horsham, in and around Horsham, out in Western Victoria. There's a bit around the IWM here in the Wimmera. Dave, would you like to talk to this slide?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Graham. Yeah, the IWM Forum was established in 2018. We had our first direction statement in 2020, and during those 2 years of forming the statement, we identified the Horsham water grid concept, and what was really pleasing is that project was identified by a range of key partners and the community as priority projects. And I guess since then the rest has been history, and I guess you get a bit of a feel for the range of stakeholders and partners that we've got as part of our forum there on the screen. And I guess where our forum's a little bit unique is that we use the regional partnerships, and the scope for the practitioners is part of a broader community called the Wimmera Strategic Waterway Management Group. And it looks at all waterway and water management aspects. Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, Dave. Just for a bit of context around GWM Water, we're the water corporation in northwestern Victoria. We cover a large area shown on the little map there, water and wastewater services. I guess what's a bit different from other water corporations in Victoria is that GWM Water manages water from source to tap. So we manage all the headworks, the dams in the Grampians, take some water from the Murray River as well, and groundwater, and supply and manage that all the way through to customer supply. So an end-to-end service. We don't have a lot of customers in the region, just given the dispersed nature of the population. So lots of small towns spread out over a large area. So just a quick overview of the Horsham SmartWater Project. So it was finished a couple of years ago. Ended up being an $11 million project, so reasonably substantial. It did have a strong, I guess the core aspect of it is recycled water treatment and distribution, but a strong integration with stormwater capture and reuse, which we'll go into a bit more. And I guess the nature of those different water sources and the setting of the town, Horsham, in which it was delivered, meant there was a number of agencies involved and some really strong collaboration between those agencies. Just to acknowledge, the project was funded through the National Water Grid, GWM Water, Agriculture Victoria, Horsham Rural City Council and DEECA all contributed funds to the project. Okay, so I guess the project started, there was a few issues going on in town. Number one, it's Agriculture Victoria has a research farm, the Horsham Smart Farm, just out to the west of Horsham. It's been the main user of recycled water from Horsham's Wastewater Treatment Plant for a number of years, quite a long time. So the kind of cropping trials that they do there are set up around using that water. Over the years, though, they've, I guess, improved their efficiency of irrigation, and especially recently, there's been a push for, you know, much greater diversification in the trials that they're doing, and looking to do more with less water. Overall, it's led to there being a reduction in demand for recycled water. Horsham Rural City Council uses stormwater that they capture around town in basins to keep parks and gardens and sports fields green. But they have an issue with that. I mean, it's quite a dry climate in Horsham, and most years they would be running out of stormwater to use on parks and gardens sometimes before summer's even halfway through. So particularly before the end of summer though. And really using potable water as a substitute is not ideal. It's costly and not a good use of that resource. They also had a bit of a stormwater management problem out at the Horsham Aerodrome, which became part of this project, and we'll talk about that a bit later. And for GWM Water, we had an issue with, or linked to Agriculture Victoria taking less water for their smart farm operations. Horsham is growing slowly, and the volume of influent we get to the treatment plant is increasing. We don't have a great, I guess, breadth of ways to use, or we didn't have a great breadth of ways to use that recycled water. There'd flood irrigation bays on site, which were limited. Most of it went to Agriculture Victoria. And with them reducing their demands, we really were looking for something else to do with the water. And this project was about unlocking the potential of that water and getting some new end uses. Just a bit of a map here. So the wastewater treatment plant is down to the southwest of Horsham. We've got the golf course right next door, so that is an existing recycled water user. It's the other main user other than the Agriculture Victoria Smart Farm, which is out to the west here. We had an existing pipeline shown in red there, which would transfer the recycled water from the wastewater plant to the smart farm, but no recycled water reticulation going into town, into the Horsham urban area, which is up on the top right of screen there. So we had mainly at the outset, it was Agriculture Victoria and GWM Water got together talking about, you know, our recycled water agreement and their reduction in water being used and forecast further reduction. Agriculture Victoria also talked about their they'd been trying to get funding for building some better treatment infrastructure on site for that water, but hadn't been able to get that funding. GWM, we knew we needed to do something to improve or increase the usage of that recycled water and give ourselves some more options. So we got together and put together a scope of works with the intent to try and get some funding for it, which involved GWM Water and Agriculture Victoria working together on building some infrastructure and, I guess, creating a more sustainable way of using the recycled water. A key part of that was also involving Horsham Rural City in getting recycled water into town to the parks and gardens to supplement their irrigation so that those green spaces could be kept green year round. And be of more benefit to the town, give more options for recycled water to be used. So that funding bid was put together as a collaborative effort from GWM Water and Agriculture Victoria into the National Water Grid. I think it was their Connections Pathway funding at the time, and with support from Horsham Rural City and Wimmera CMA as well. Yeah, and so that funding bid was successful, which was great. And we had a project. And then we get to the interesting parts, which is how we worked together to deliver this project. So we had 2 agencies and 3 agencies with Horsham Rural City involved. So we had some aspects around funding, bid to manage, and then around actually delivering the project so that it would deliver an outcome or deliver the outcomes we wanted, and make a system that would work in the end. So one of the first things that we did was put together a governance structure. So it was agreed GWM Water took the lead overall in managing the project, and I guess that coordination piece kind of centred around having a steering committee set up, which had representatives from all of the contributing organisations, so GWM Water, AgVic, Horsham Council, Wimmera CMA and DEECA. And then we had a separate technical working group, which would talk about the actual infrastructure to be delivered and the solutions that were being put in place and how they would work together. And a key piece we had, which is in the middle here, the project coordinator role. So that was actually my role in the project, as kind of a middle person, so that the communications between each of the agencies and the steering committee could be funneled and coordinated to make sure we had a cohesive project. And then the actual delivery of the infrastructure and the items to deliver the outcomes we wanted were done separately. So Agriculture Victoria worked on their infrastructure on the Horsham Research Farm, and GWM Water, we worked on the infrastructure for our wastewater treatment plant and the pipelines around town. We can dig more into that later when we have some more discussion. But essentially the scope of works for the project, we had a new treatment facility to go in at the Horsham Wastewater Treatment Plant. So it's a DAF, a dissolved air flotation installation. So that was going to remove a lot of the solids from the recycled water and make it more, I guess, more suitable for irrigation, particularly in mechanical irrigation systems. And we were building transfer pipelines to move the recycled water into town to use it in the green spaces in town. Agriculture Victoria, they built a reverse osmosis plant at the Horsham Smart Farm. So it's a desalination plant essentially to reduce the salt in that water, and they actually used it to create a range of salt levels so that they could run crop trials with different salt levels. So really interesting what they're doing with that kind of shandying water to get to salt levels at their will, I guess. Yeah. And they also did a very major upgrade to their irrigation system, which was getting a bit long in the tooth. So this is a map of the layout. So we've got the orange pipeline here is what I showed before on that aerial image, was the existing pipeline. Then all the blue lines are the new pipelines that were installed as part of the project. So overall, it was about 15 kilometres of new pipe was installed. Nothing really huge. I think the largest pipes were 200 millimetre diameter. But we're getting right into the middle of town here at the racecourse site, and then skirting around the edge of town and to the north where we had some of the stormwater supplies, where we have also the cemetery up north there and some parks which are currently using the stormwater system. And the line off to the north there I'll talk a little bit more about, which is where the aerodrome is, north of Horsham. And there was a bit of a drainage water issue there, which we were able to help with through this project. So at the Horsham Smart Farm, this is the bit that Agriculture Victoria built. Pretty substantial works, really. They had to build some new lagoons on the site there, so a permeate lagoon and a brine lagoon to enable the reverse osmosis plant to operate. And this is them kind of when they're close to finishing being constructed in the picture there. A lot of work, so they replaced all of their flood irrigation system and got some new systems for travelling mechanical irrigation, and then had to do work on a brine management area. Of course, when you have reverse osmosis, you create a brine byproduct. So they had some innovative systems they used to manage that brine. The wastewater treatment plant in Horsham, GWM Water built the new dissolved air flotation facility. So this is the tank here. In a new shed is also provision here to add a second train to that DAF to kind of future-proof that treatment facility. It's fairly low-tech, really, pretty resilient sort of a treatment system, but certainly removes a lot of solids from that water. And then the pipeline, which was installed around town. By skirting around the edge of town, we were able to install most of that pipeline on roadsides in non-residential areas. So all around that edge of Horsham, it's mostly cropping paddocks at the moment. And then from the edge of town, able to duck in along residential streets with a kind of shorter lengths of pipeline to get to that list of end users. But one of the interesting IWM aspects of the project was at the Horsham Aerodrome, where apologies for my rough squiggles on the aerial images here, but we had where the blue squiggle is there is where water would pond during winter and in summer rain events. It's a very flat area out there, and it really had no way to drain. So it would sit out there as a shallow kind of wetland and attract a lot of birds. And you can see on the right of the screen there is the end of the runway where planes are taking off. So it's not an ideal combination to have a whole lot of birds congregating at the end of a runway. And there's also issues with surrounding land just being inundated and boggy a lot of the year. And the surrounding landowners weren't particularly happy about it. Like Horsham Rural City Council had tried a number of times to get rid of this water and deal with it, but because of the site being so flat and there not being any drainage pipe in place, they'd never been able to achieve that. And what this project actually did was build a pipe out to that site and then install a sump with a pump, so that we were able to pump that water away. And we did that by actually using the recycled water pipeline we'd installed as a stormwater transfer pipeline as well. So we'd alternate from being a recycled water to a stormwater pipeline by using the same pipe. And there's a whole process around how that gets isolated and flushed and make sure it's got the recycled water out before we put stormwater in, so we're not cross-contaminating there. But that was devised as an efficient way to use an existing pipe, because most of the time when we wanted to get rid of that stormwater from the aerodrome, there wasn't a call for recycled water to be used. So over winter, when parks and gardens aren't really using recycled water very much, then when we're most likely to have water ponding at the aerodrome, and we can use that pipeline to get rid of that water. And that water, when I say get rid of it, we move it to the stormwater detention ponds that are already existing in town. So then that can be used for irrigating parks and gardens as well. So I guess that added to the pool of water that was available. And it's been, I guess, ongoing. The operation of that pipeline has been an ongoing collaboration between GWM Water and Council. And it's just one of those things which is, a hallmark of a ongoing benefit for both organisations. I guess most of you are probably familiar with, the benefits of these sort of solutions, in that, I guess, for agriculture Victoria particularly, there's an economic benefit to this, in that they're able to attract more businesses to get them to undertake their crop trials. A lot of social benefits by keeping green spaces in town green. Horsham has had heavy water restrictions in the past, and it can be it's certainly a happier place to be in when things are green, rather than all dead. And environmental benefits of reducing that potable water use, maximising the use of what we have in stormwater, and then, I guess the long-term solution in having more sustainable and reliable water supply for the town, making the most of the resources we have is important. And plenty of opportunities for future expansion. So at the moment, there's plans ahead for expanding that recycled water network that is in town, further integration with stormwater supplies, and potentially increasing water quality as well to diversify the uses that water can be used for. I think that's all I had. So that was really a bit of an overview, but hopefully that will give you enough context for questions later on.
Thanks, Graham. That was quite a good information and quite a good overview about the project. We do have a couple of questions, but we have run over I think, we're just 3 minutes over, so we should be okay to take the questions. I will actually invite Micah to, help with the questions and then start the panel discussion afterwards. So, Micah.
Thanks, Tanvir. So we have a question here about the stormwater from the aerodrome scenario. Does the pipe need to be flushed after it's used to transfer the stormwater? I think you've already answered that, but maybe I can add, was there any concerns about chlorine residual because the recycled water needs to have a fair bit of chlorine, and is it the issue being diluted by the stormwater in the pipeline?
Yeah, I should clarify, the recycled water is a class 3 or class C, sorry, recycled water. So it's not a disinfected, not a class A supply. So so we don't have an issue with the chlorine residual. The issue we were dealing with flushing is it's being used for recycled water transfer, and then we're putting this stormwater into it, especially if that is going to go to a stormwater detention pond rather than straight to a park for irrigation, to make sure we're not putting recycled water into the stormwater pond. So,
yeah. Another question is why Agricultural Victoria reduced their demand for recycled water?
I guess previously the only irrigation setup they had there, or the bulk of the irrigation setup was flood irrigation bays, which would use quite a lot of water. And I guess just as times have moved ahead with agricultural technology, there's a lot more targeted lower volume spraying happening, and they're probably focused more on a diversification of trials with different water qualities, not so much on bulk surface irrigation. That's reduced their need for the water. And they also wanted to be able to treat the water more because there is a salt content in the recycled water that comes through, and that was having an impact on the land, just that gradual build-up of salt and creating some sodicity in the soils out at the farm there. So the improved quality of the water will help deal with that issue.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, I'd like to get to one question first before I get into that. What do they do with the brine water? So that after they've gone through the reverse osmosis, the high salt content water, what happens with that?
So the system that they had on, I'm not an expert on this, but the concept that they've built there was basically a brine pan, but it's permeable at the bottom, and it has a network of collection pipes just subsurface under the brine distribution area, and they'd be growing crops on that area, salt tolerant crops, the salt would get taken up through those crops, and then they collect what comes through in the subsurface pipes and recirculate that. So the idea there was to, I guess, increase the concentration of the salt in the end product, which would then go to an evaporation pan for the brine. So, but I think they were talking about being able to reduce the area of brine evaporation that they needed by about 70% or so by being able to do trial that method. And I must admit, I haven't caught up with exactly how that is going for them, but that was certainly the concept and what the EPA approval was based on.
Yeah, and I guess if they can evaporate it, then you'll get the salt solidifying on the surface, and they could probably scrape that and manage that through solid waste removal. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, I think that is at the moment probably the only way we have to manage salt on an inland facility like this. Yeah.
And is there any, I don't know much about the farm there. Is there any significant crops that they have there that are, statewide significance, or is it a local sort of operation? Is there research that's done out there on new types of crops or new types of irrigation and other farming management?
Yeah, they do some really cutting edge research there for all sorts of crop trials. A lot of the trials are requested and funded by private agricultural business. And yeah, a lot of the research is around climate change and adaptability, trying to get crops that are going to be suited to future climate scenarios, increased salt content of water. Yeah, there is a lot of work they do out there, and it is very significant statewide. I mean, they have, I think, 2 or 3 of these smart farms around the state. I think spread over the different kind of climate areas of the state. Not sure, Dave, if you are able to add anything to that. My understanding is a bit limited.
No, it's worth mentioning that a lot of the research is world-class research, and there's a lot of collaboration with international companies as well. And I guess as we have different plant varieties growing in Australia and Victoria, so the last few years there's been a real increase in lentil production, and lentils are extremely susceptible to salt, and so by having this better water quality there, we're actually able to do more lentil and pulse trials, which then, actually accelerates the uptake of more sustainable plants under climate change or getting specific market conditions right. But equally also for the region, ag research is a big employer of staff. So by being able to have that level of security that we're going to have an ongoing sustainable research farm in the region, that really underpins and supports not only the local environment but also food security as well. Yeah,
excellent. And could I ask, so David mentioned the IWM forums that DEECA set up, roughly 10 years ago. Was that the sort of catalyst for getting everyone together to initiate this project, or were there existing relationships between the CMA and GWM Water and AgVic? How did this come together? What were the relationships that sort of precipitated the project?
Yeah, I can kick that one off. So I guess we'd always had strong and close working relationships with the key partners in the area. But what the IWM Forum did was it gave us a bit of breathing space and funding as well to look at, well, if we were to look at achieving true integrated water management projects in the region, what are some of the ones that we could actually really start to interrogate and or basically low-hanging fruit? And I guess this project was identified early, right in at the start, because we had all the stakeholders sitting around the table, and it was Like it was just the case that the IWM gave us an opportunity just to kind of think holistically, and it didn't matter who the partners were. It was just like, well, who's got a good idea? What's the risk? What's an opportunity? And how can we manage our water resources better? So it was very much a brainstorming process.
I think the IWM forum's been a kind of driving force for keeping these future benefits in process of being realised. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And was there sort of initial seed funding to go the initial investigations and project design getting up? Because it was $11 million all up, but there must have been some smaller investments before that.
Yeah, I think particularly Agriculture Victoria had done quite a lot of work beforehand, because they'd, I think, made funding applications for their treatment upgrades and irrigation upgrade works prior. So they almost came to the project with a design ready to go. GWM Water were a bit slower to catch up. We had some concepts, but needed to put a bit more meat on the bones. But in the IWM concepts, I think it might be fair to say they existed as ideas, and we were able to, I guess, develop those ideas into part of the design to actually get it realised through the project.
Yeah, and maybe you're able to talk a little bit about council's involvement. And I think you've mentioned, Graham, that council delivered some of the infrastructure as well, and just sort of getting alignment in terms of investment timing and getting everything to match up in specifications and everything.
Yeah, so a big part of working with Horsham Rural City on this was around what their existing stormwater systems were, and a lot of them have been in place for a long time. So there was, not a great a set of plans or anything to look at. We had to do a lot of site visits and talking to the operators who kind of knew where pipes were and how they operated, and then talking to the end users as well about how they actually use the water, how their existing irrigation systems were set up and what the shortcomings were and things that we could improve on. And then it was about agreeing the scope of, okay, what can we do? What can you guys fund? What can we fund under the project? What and it kind of fits with the, I guess, the objectives of the funding, and then the extra stretch objectives that you'd like to achieve. So that was a really interesting process. And I guess even beyond implementation, the way the system gets operated is going to evolve over time. So yeah, we're certainly in that phase at the moment, and hopefully expanding that system as people get more comfortable with using it. And realise some more benefits from that. But certainly for council as well, a big win was kind of dealing with this issue out at the aerodrome, which I think had been a thorn in their side for quite a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine it sounds like it was a bit of a side thought, but it became a very important part of the project, that the aerodrome drainage. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, it's I guess at first we weren't sure how it would work in kind of operating it. But once we started looking at the design and how we could manage that operationally, it became apparent it would work, and there's no need to build a second pipe for that to happen. So and the extra funding that the project received through the IWM money was able to provide that link up to the aerodrome and the infrastructure that we needed to make that happen.
And are you able to talk a little bit about any community engagement or other stakeholder engagement that was done throughout the project to manage expectations, or delivery timeframes? And I think there was a question in the chat actually, and you might be able to tie this in, is about access to land for laying the pipelines. Was there any private property, or is it all through the road reserve the pipelines were laid?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It is 99% in road reserves, which was an interesting learning for GWM Water actually, because personally I've been involved in a lot of pipelines being put in rural areas, and usually water supply pipelines, and we've always had a practice of installing them in private property because they are pipelines servicing those properties, and it's usually easier to build them in a paddock instead of intersecting with native vegetation and other services in a road reserve corridor. But this one, and we went into the design initially going, oh, we'll install them in the paddocks as we do with our water pipelines. And the feedback we got from the landowners was pretty definitive pretty quickly that they'd rather not have them in their paddock since they're not getting any benefit from it. So we quickly altered our design to installing them in the road reserve. Yeah, fortunately, the road reserves we were dealing with was a very limited amount of native vegetation, so there's just a couple of sections we ended up horizontal direct drilling or diverting around. Yeah, so they were quite suitable for installing pipes. Yeah, we've had, and I guess in terms of community consultation, there was the consultation around the actual construction and where it was going. And once we made that decision not to install in private paddocks, it became, yeah, that process became easier. We've also been talking to landowners along that pipeline about the potential for them to access recycled water for like irrigating lucerne crop or something that could happen. And I guess at the moment, no one's set up for irrigation because it's a dryland cropping region. But we do, or at least at the moment, we have one landowner who is planning to set himself up with an irrigator and start accessing that water. So that's, I mean, that's one of those future benefits, which is close to being realised now as a first step. And we probably think once one starts that process, there will be more should follow once that example gets set, assuming it's successful. Yeah, that should go ahead more so. And then I guess other aspects around, because what we did was introduce a recycled water supply to parks and gardens in town, which didn't have them before. And I guess there was a bit of an expectation there might be some pushback from community around that, but really I was quite surprised that there was a general acceptance that yes, this was a good idea, and that the risk could be managed appropriately. And I guess there was that precedent of having the stormwater supply prior as well. So yeah, that was quite a pleasing aspect of the project.
Yeah, and can I ask about the commissioning and early operation? So it's been running for a year and a half or 2 years now, is that right? Were there any sort of unexpected issues that came up and sort of dealing with those, quality and health management and risk management plans?
Really, probably just the time frame to get them in place was something we hadn't really anticipated, especially because GWM Water needed to update our plans, HEMP, for the overall wastewater treatment plant and the usage systems that come off that. But then because council was operating most of the sites where it was being used in town and they hadn't done it before, and they needed to set up site management plans for all of those sites. So we worked together with council to get that done, but it did take longer than I had anticipated. So we didn't kind of finish the project and immediately start using a heap of water. It was kind of, oh, okay, one site's ready, now we start using the water and then get the next one over the line. And so that's been happening, and yeah, the water's getting used, which is great. The pump from the aerodrome is being used, so that system's in operation. Yeah, we're getting. We had a query from council just the other day about the pump there that needed a bit of maintenance, and I guess one of the interesting parts about collaborating is, we built that as part of the project and handed it over to council. Now they're needing to operate it, so we need to point out that, well, you guys are maintaining that part of the system. So, just defining how the ongoing maintenance and operations of these systems work when they're put in as a collaborative effort. Yeah, just need to set all those systems into place.
Yeah, it's probably just about connecting them with the right contacts to who to call to do the maintenance, or if there's any faults to come out and fix that. And GWM Water might sort of have some experience with the right contractors or right service providers.
Yeah, and there is that element of, you know, that where the expertise lies, we can certainly help out in that area. Yeah, that's, I think, where agencies can really help each other out. If it's not financial, it's, you know, just having the knowledge to be able to help and willing to help. Yeah.
And are you keeping track of how much water is being realised through this? How much recycled water and how much stormwater is being used?
Yes, it's all metered. So yeah, we're still, I guess we're not using the full volumes that we had aimed for yet. That will be increasing. There's been a relatively wet winter this year. It'll be interesting to see how much is getting used this summer, actually. Yeah, we're certainly on the way. There's more water available than is being used still. So yeah, we're certainly keen to try and get more sites connected and more usage happening.
Yeah, excellent. I'll just go through the Q&A chat and see if there's anything in there. And Tanvir, I don't know how much time we have actually till the other Q&A starts.
So it's 1:20 already, and we need to close the webinar at 1:45. So yeah, there are 2 questions in the chat as well. But yeah. So I'll just quickly read the questions from the chat. So first one's from Darren. He's asking that he's interested in the process for laying the RCW pipeline along road reserves. He's asking if they were Horsham Rural Council or Department of Transport road reserves.
So we had a bit of each. Part of the pipe was laid along the road reserve of the Wimmera Highway, which is a Department of Transport managed road, and also the continuation of that road running into Horsham, and then the more rural roads around the edge of town were Horsham Rural City. Effectively, my recollection is right, the Department of Transport allowed Horsham Rural City to work with us on managing all of that, just because we weren't actually impacting the roads at all. We were in the road reserve area, and I guess the risk that they saw from it was pretty minor. So Department of Transport really didn't get involved, other than just directing us to work with Horsham Rural City on that, where those pipes were going.
That's excellent that they were able to delegate that to the local council. Yeah, make it a lot more straightforward.
And I guess we can take just one more from Caroline, again in the chat. She's asking, what was the process for traditional owner engagement, or was it just around the CHMP approval process?
Yeah, so this one we engaged earlier with Wurundjeri Land Council, who is the registered Aboriginal party for around Horsham. And I guess we flagged what the project was and what the infrastructure in concept was going to do, as we had early part of the planning was I guess the concept, what do we call it, the due diligence study, cultural heritage study, where we looked at what, any known heritage in the area, anything that would intersect with our planned works area, the on-ground study there, but there was nothing in what we were doing which would trigger a CHMP, so no intersections with areas of cultural sensitivity, no known sites, and there was nothing found on the due diligence survey, so we didn't actually need to go ahead and do a CHMP for the project. So beyond that, it was really just kind of keeping updates going on what was happening with the project as we went. So there wasn't any formal approvals required for the project.
Great.
And I guess more broadly, as part of developing the original strategic direction statement, there was certainly TO engagement during that process. So they were aware of the projects, and collectively as all partners, we'd identified that this is going to be a good outcome for the region. So yeah, we'd certainly had involvement right at the project concept, and then as Graham's explaining, operationally as well.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I got that there's one question in the Q&A that has received a few votes. So maybe we could take that, and then maybe you can continue with the discussion and take the rest of the questions later.
This is the one from Dean, the question from Dean. Yeah, so can you expand on what could happen next with the expansion of the infrastructure and further diversification of the water quality and the use, and potentially, any private users, and potentially even them tapping into the desalinated water from Ag Victoria?
Yeah. Dave, would you like to start off on kind of the planned expansion plans that are kind of in the mix at the moment?
Yes, certainly. And so we've got a range of community groups that are super excited about the use of potential water or the recycled water. And I guess just so everybody's super clear on the context, the region and Horsham in particular is super dry and susceptible to the real heat of summer and drought conditions. So yeah, we've got a number of plans with different groups, and equally the community, and Graham talked more broadly, is that people love the concept of greening areas, so greener oases. People love being able to actually play cricket or football or run on a grass oval during winter when it's nice and wet, but then continue on into summer, so your fitness doesn't drop off, and the kids can continue to play sport on a lush surface. So yeah, we've got lots of ideas for expansion, and one of them that we're super keen on is about how can we use it to achieve environmental outcomes as well. So how can we use that to establish more vegetation and green the banks of the river that often are just bare soil? And so during summer, what happens is that bare soil, we get a summer storm, that bare soil runs into the river, causes a whole heap of turbidity and discolorisation. Whereas if we were able to establish some native vegetation there and create filtering along the river, that would even improve the aesthetics of our weir pool and the usability of it. So there's literally lots of ideas, and I guess that's part of the integrated water management process, is come up with these novel ideas and brainstorming, and I guess as Graham illustrated, the tapping into the aerodrome, people were saying, oh well, while we've got the bonnet open, is there any reason why we can't solve the stormwater problem as well? And then the cemetery group that also gets water, for years they've been wanting to turn the cemetery into a bit of a parkland and make it more of an attractive place. So it's been about being able to tap into a lot of those groups and keep the thinking kind of far and wide.
Mm. And can I ask, were there many benchmarks used for dollars per megaliter or anything like that, where you sort of to assess the viability of the project? Or was it, I mean, $11 million is not a huge investment in the scheme of things, and there's a lot of obvious benefits for the project, but when it came down to the financial analysis, were there any sort of key indicators that you were looking for?
Yeah, I guess in terms of justifying investment in the project, we certainly have obviously pricing for recycled water, so we're able to estimate volumes of use and what revenue might come through providing that back into the to customers. which was one side of it. But I guess on the other side, the cost of not doing anything and potentially, increased risk of being non-compliant in discharges from the wastewater treatment plant was another consideration. So some of it was infrastructure upgrades that would have had to happen in some form anyway. And I guess this project tried to identify ways we could do it for the most benefit, rather than just, improving the irrigation bays at the wastewater plant for no one's benefit, other than meeting compliance requirements. If we're able to, distribute a product which is useful for others, much better outcome.
Yeah, it sounds like you've taken a very holistic approach to looking at a lot of the issues in the area and all the planned works, and then tying them together into a multi-benefit project. There was another question that just came through from Darren. Has there been any recent housing developments in the Wimmera that have been connected to recycled water, or is it just because it's Class C water, is the standard not acceptable for a residential third pipe?
It is not suitable for third pipe, as in pipe to the house, but there is, that area to the west of Horsham where the recycled water transfer pipeline has been built, there is a housing development going in that area, in an expansion area. And the council has made commitment to at least tapping into that recycled water pipeline for watering the parks and gardens in that area. So certainly that's a good synergy there, and that there is that development already planned, and that recycled water will be available for those developments. But yeah, at the moment, without treatment to Class A, we're not looking at a third pipe to residential properties.
Yeah, that makes sense. But at least, the open space irrigation is being factored in for these new developments. That's great. There's a question here around the size of the pipe. I think you might have mentioned, Graham, the 200 mil transfer pipe. Is there any sort of technical reasons why that size pipe was used, or is it?
I guess it's all based on hydraulic modelling of what size pipe we need to get the volumes of water that we needed to into town. We did, just an interesting note on that, we did upsize the main transfer line into the racecourse in the middle of town, recognising so that's got excess capacity in it at the moment. That might even be 250, not 200. But the idea there is that would be the pipeline for future expansions to come off. Like if we were to go further into other parts of town, we would come off that pipe. So a bit of future proofing built into the sizing of the infrastructure there. We're really looking at, what flow rate we are discharging from the wastewater treatment plant now, and then how much we need to get into town as we go further north with that transfer pipe. Around town, the pipe sizes do get smaller because there's less end users up there, and we need to get less of a volume of supply up to those users than we do into the middle of town. So I guess pretty standard pipeline design.
Yeah, and we've had this event today to sort of share the project. I was not really aware of it beforehand. Have you had any other events or site tours or knowledge sharing activities as part of this project?
We have. Not to mind. I'm not sure if there's been anything with IWM, Dave. I think Agriculture Victoria's probably had some open days on their new infrastructure as well, particularly for businesses that are looking to engage them for crop trials.
Yeah, and we did a nice little video that it's been shared as well on the overall project as well. So
yeah, I think there was a IWM kind of DEECA visit out a little while ago, I believe, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's with the agriculture minister and the water minister, there's quite a few different departments that probably would have been interested in getting out there and seeing the project. Tanvir, have I missed any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few in the Q&A. So I'm not sure we have answered this one regarding desalination being energy intensive from Kylie. So yes, she's asking if you can comment on how the lower cost of electricity from solar or wind and the ability to generate on site can change the economics of using a selling water supply.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It's interesting because a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is around renewable energy. So, but certainly, yes, it is energy intensive. The DAF plant is not so energy intensive, but we have installed a behind-the-meter solar system at the Horsham Wastewater Plant to help supply that with renewable energy. And Agriculture Victoria actually installed a floating solar array in their permeate storage at the site. So that was added on just after the project, and they had plans. I'm not sure if they finished yet, but we're installing battery storage as well. And they were actually looking at a flywheel arrangement as well to go with that as another form of energy storage. So certainly, yeah, they've implemented some ways to manage the electricity demands of that reverse osmosis plant. And I guess the way they've set it up is they don't need to run it full bore 24 hours a day. They can pick and choose a bit. I mean, they need to keep things circulating to keep the membranes in order. But because they've got their permeate storage there, they're able to use that volume to buffer the peak, so they don't have to run it hard overnight when they're not getting solar energy. And it's just another point of note, and it might cut across to one of the other questions in the Q&A about benefits for Berengee-Gadgin Land Council. At the Horsham Wastewater Treatment Plant at the moment, we are kind of looking at further renewable energy developments there in collaboration with Berengee-Gadgin Land Council. So how that can benefit both parties, and that is partly because of increased, or the change in our electricity demand profile, I guess, having this new facility on site and generally increased electricity usage. We've got some opportunities there to increase our renewable energy generation and storage. Yeah, so that's one way we're looking at offsetting our grid usage of electricity, and also benefiting Berengee-Gadgin along the way.
Thanks, Prem. There are a couple of questions around the raw water supply. So Nathan's asking, is there a water supply for the whole year, and what are the usages of this raw water? Yeah.
So for the stormwater, is that?
I'm assuming stormwater. He's just mentioned raw water, not really, included whether it's.
So obviously, I mean, the two sources of water are the recycled water from wastewater inflows. So that is pretty steady all year round. We do get higher flows into the wastewater plant in wet periods because of infiltration and ingress of stormwater kind of seeping into the stormwater pipes. But really we're looking 3 to 4 megalitres per day coming into the Horsham plant pretty steadily all year round. So in that regard, that's a steady supply that's available. The stormwater, of course, much more intermittent. Yeah, we do sometimes get summer storms around Horsham where we can capture a lot of water quickly, but that's not reliable. And winter rainfall is typically the more reliable source of water, but then there's not really, if it's a wet winter, there's not a demand for that water for irrigation. So yeah, it needs to be stored. So it's one of those, I think it's the ever-present wicked problem of, collecting a lot of water and not needing it when it's available, and then needing to use it. And everyone wants the water, and it's not falling out of the sky. So so I guess we manage that through storage. The main on the north side of town, Horsham Council manages what's called the police paddocks, which is stormwater basins up there, which is a really nice area, kind of natural park area with good water storage. It's stocked with fish, and a popular spot for recreation for families up there, fishing and cycling and whatnot.
Sounds good. We had one question earlier during your presentation, Graham, around the sampling mechanism to ensure recycled water quality, especially if the part of the pipe is used to transfer untreated stormwater without flushing.
So we do flushing. So that's part of our risk management process, I guess, is we do that flushing, and we would actually flush into the tanks for one of the recycled water users' sites. So we're not flushing it to waste. We're flushing it into the tank. We'll empty the tanks first to irrigate, then flush to fill the tanks. So that's not gone to waste. And then we're relying on that process operating rather than doing spot testing and then going, okay, this is okay to transfer the stormwater now. We just need to. We know that the volume of water's gone through, and that's sufficient because it's only a limited section of pipe, the limited volume of water in there. If we can get enough volume of water through, which is we can measure, then we know that we've flushed the whole pipe. So
it's a smart way of doing it. And it sounds like, there's a lot of organisations, but it sounds like every organisation has had a benefit out of this project. And it seems like there's been good working relationships. Was there any sort of focus on doing that through the project scoping or through project development to make sure that everybody is getting a win out of this project?
I think the whole premise of the project, the way it came into being, was collaborative from the outset. So the number of different agencies involved. So certainly that steering committee that was set up, it gave every agency a voice to hear what was going on and have a say in how the project was being rolled out and what benefits it was delivering. And we did have a kind of a completion reporting process, which looked back at what were the objectives for each party and how the project delivered on them, or didn't quite get there, or what could be improved. It was, I guess, right from the outset and throughout, it was a big collaborative effort from agencies, and it's always part of the beauty of being in a smaller town. The agencies are familiar with each other to a large extent, and that it becomes easier to work with each other, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, and I think we are almost on time. So, any other comments or final insights or something? If not, I'll just quickly share my screen, because I do have a QR code to collect feedback from the participants. Please bear with me as I share my screen. So once again, I would like to thank all our panelists and Micah for facilitating this panel. I learned a lot. Once I knew that we were doing a webinar about this project, I tried to, look into it, do a bit of research and find out more. But yes, nothing gives you more information than, hearing it from the people who were involved themselves in the project. So thanks again, everyone. And thank you all online for joining us today. I hope you got to learn as much as I did, or maybe a bit more, I don't know. So, but yeah, if you could please provide your feedback, that will be great. It just helps us to make these sessions and events better and keep bringing such informative sessions for you in the future. Feel free to contact us if you would like any resources, or if you have any questions or queries about these events. Very happy to answer your questions. And yes, I will send a follow-up email, including this webinar recording link. And yeah, I'll try and get that video link about the project as well, and I'll include that in the email as well. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you all have a good rest of the day.